All right, everybody, welcome to the premiere episode of Season 2 of the Taste Media Group Intelligence Series. We are back with Jessica Cole, our guest today. Jess, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Jess is the CEO and President of Becker's Healthcare and also the 2019 EY Entrepreneur of the Year in the Transformational CEO category. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
So next month, you're going to be headed down to Florida for the big national event.
Palm Springs, California. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be awesome. So EY winners from across the nation will come to a really cool strategic growth forum. So it's a 3-day event and then followed by an awards gala where you compete again.
Awesome, Jess. Well, congratulations on that. Yeah. We're glad to see you've risen the ranks here of the CEO world here. But what we're really here to talk about today is about Becker's Healthcare, and an organization that you have been instrumental in growing since I've known you. I wanted to say 8-10 years, going back a while. But for those that don't know, can you kind of just give us an overview of what Becker's is?
For sure. So Becker's Healthcare is really a healthcare media platform. So I look at it as a multimedia play. We really aim to win in digital and then these live events we do. And so we have an amazing editorial team of about 25, all in downtown Chicago, that focus on healthcare news and analysis within specific niches. So any given day on our hospital health system site, we might cover 90 to 100 stories a day within various categories that are very important to hospital health system executives in terms of their own education. So that's one whole side. We have a legacy ambulatory surgery center side, is where we started about 12 years ago when I joined, and then Scott Becker, the founder, had that going prior. We also do these nationwide healthcare events, which are pretty awesome. They focus on very niche areas within healthcare. So we have 6 of those, all taking place in Chicago. On a small end, we might have about 1,500 people. On a big end, we might have around 4,000 plus. And it's great. We really look at our goal of 2 things, to teach and entertain. So the teaching, we lead with a ton of content from great providers, whether those are surgery center leaders or hospital health system executives. And then the entertainment, we usually get some fun celebrity speakers to add that entertainment component.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. We'll get into who you've had at your events in a minute here, but just kind of getting into the whole healthcare space. Coming out of college, was this something that you were intrigued by, or was it something you kind of like came across, or how did you get like this involved in the healthcare world per se?
Yeah, great question. So I started off as a biology major, and then I went and sold encyclopedias door to door my freshman year of college, and I decided, okay, I really like business. I like the challenge of being able to work for yourself and create something, even if people didn't want to buy my encyclopedias in Northern California. And so with that, I pivoted. I did a biology minor and then business major. And so I knew I wanted to be in healthcare somehow, some way. So my initial plan was really going to med device world. I happened to be introduced to Scott Becker, the founder of Becker's Healthcare, and he was outsourcing everything to an event management company at that time.
And just in the ambulatory surgical center world, correct?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And so it was almost this like fun challenge of, okay, definitely not the prestige of a Medtronic, but this seems like I could intern, we could see if we could create something. So I just started calling and trying to figure out the advertising landscape within ASCs, that surgery center world specifically.
Yeah, Justin, and to your credit, when I started doing videos, and people watching this that may have seen us at Becker's events, we're kind of in the background there, but we've definitely been able to experience the growth of these events. And I think when we started off, like you said, maybe 500, 1,000 people,
Sure.
And last week we were at the Hilton with almost 4,000 people. I mean, these are very big events that you've been able to manifest and just kind of build, and like you said, going from this content world to where people are getting emails and a website to actual physical events.
For sure.
It's not an easy transition to get people to physically do something, and you guys have really done a good job getting high-level people to show up there. So, like, how have you kind of then, like you said, gone from, just kind of starting off in this space to really, being a leader and being something that people need to know to be able to, just receive information regarding healthcare?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, that was a long question.
No, it's all good. We have an amazing editorial team, and then this events side of the business too is just constantly, their mantra, they say, is always like good is not good enough at all of our events. So we try to learn from the attendees, the speakers, and then the exhibitor sponsors. So the exhibitor sponsors are critical, they pay all the bills. But the attendees, we are constantly trying to kind of make pivots and learn, okay, what do we need to make sure are on our panels, who do we need to get as speakers that will help them run their practice better, or their surgery center, or their hospital health system. So we've done a lot digitally that's helped us be able to kind of pinpoint, okay, readership-wise, what's working, what's not, and the ability to double down as a...
So you're able to use the data from the actual articles and the content you're putting out there to kind of see what's...
Yeah, that's been super helpful.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, what's a hospital CEO and CFO reading a lot with us, and how do we kind of always constantly skate where the puck's going, not in the past. And so that's been able to help drive this editorial and kind of the education aspect of the events.
And you know, it was interesting last week with when we were interviewing Scott, who we've interviewed several times actually over the years, but you know, he really tries this idea of healthcare, and it's such a complex aspect of our lives and society, but it can become somewhat politicized, and Scott makes it very clear that Becker's is a platform. You guys try to not dabble in one side of the aisle or not, but you guys really try to present this as here are the facts of healthcare world. Like, how do you guys kind of manage that and keep it this platform where everybody with different opinions can come and feel like it's really more of a discussion versus a debate? Yeah,
no, it's a great question. It's something that we think about frequently. Is we try to be down the middle. We don't want to be known too right or too left either way.
Which is easy to do, you know what I mean? Just because that's the way it's presented to a lot of people in healthcare is presented to us in the frame of politics versus like, here's actually how healthcare works.
For sure. And so I think strategy and kind of the vision that has helped us kind of stay that down the middle has been, how are we almost like the Wall Street Journal in all of our niches? So very business focused, very factual, and it's, you can't polarize the editorial team to write one way or the other. And so it's almost giving them the freedom and the trust that we know you'll do the best for our readers. There's 150,000 people a day counting on us. And so how do we aim to just make sure we're down the middle? So that's how we do it editorial wise. And then at the agenda, a lot of times it's like, if we have a political person as a keynote, we aim to have one on the left and one on the right.
And literally at the event, somebody will be there, like kind of like moderating.
Yeah.
So it makes it kind of this cool forum, which is where, like you said, it's not just somebody up there just speaking. I mean, it tends to be a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then just kind of talking too about, the idea of healthcare, like you said, 10, 12 years ago, obviously it's always been part of people's lives, but really, I mean, it's at the forefront of a lot of people's, just their daily how we receive healthcare, just the whole system as a whole. But how, like, could you ever imagine when you started, like, how big of an issue healthcare would become almost? I mean, do you feel like you kind of were able to piggyback along that with Becker's has kind of grown as it's become more of an important thing within our society? Yeah, no, for sure. It's been, I mean, in the wave of consumerism, as the patients kind of become more and more a buyer of healthcare in terms of high deductible plans or what they expect. And then as kind of millennials and other generations have come, I mean, they expect providers to do different things, whether it's a text to pay your bill, whether it's scheduling on ZocDoc or some of those platforms that you expect kind of that immediacy. And I think providers have had to adapt, technology companies have flooded to healthcare and kind of thought through, okay, how do we help? So it's interesting. There's some Amazons, Googles, huge technology firms that are coming now to kind of look at healthcare and think through what can we do and what's our play. But it's been fun. It's been a really, really fun ride. Yeah, and kind of speaking of that too as well, it's like, I was literally at the doctor yesterday for your annual checkup. And as a consumer, when you go, you're gonna, maybe have an interaction with the admin when you check in, maybe a nurse or two, and your doctor, and that's pretty much it. But what's cool when you go to Becker's is you see all of the people that are in the background of this. Like you said, the technology plays, the revenue plays. I mean, is there one sector that's kind of gotten involved in Becker's where maybe 5 years ago you didn't think like these people would even want to be in this forum? Yeah, for sure. So when we started our Becker's Hospital Review line, which is our largest line now in terms of readership and events wise, we really focused at just like, how are we winning and how are we being a destination platform for the CEO? And then once we felt like we got really good traction and we were penetrating that market well, then it was, okay, CEO, CFO. So we were very persona driven with our events and our editorial strategy. 5 years ago, I would have never thought we were as far along within the health IT world. And so that's where we're spending a ton of time. I always say, like,
internally, we're almost a dog with a bone of how are we growing, how are we penetrating, and how are we becoming in their workflow, whether that's our newsletters, our website, our webinars, or our events. Like, how do they absolutely look to us as almost the number one platform they go to?
Yeah, and again, it's just interesting how all these pain points within, you hear about healthcare, but when you go to the events, you realize like how many people are actually working, like smart, sophisticated people are working to solve these pain points for consumers or companies.
Sure.
So it's definitely cool. I mean, we're lucky to be able to be a fly on the wall at these types of events. Then just kind of segueing to as well, when you're talking about growing your own the Beckers as a company, what have you can you give us a quick little sketch? I mean, you can say it better than I can, but like where you started to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I joined as an intern from University of Iowa, and it was all remote. So Scott Becker, the founder, wonderful mentor and leader, and has been crazily important throughout the growth we've had in the last 12, 13 years.
And a good moderator.
Amazing, the best.
He's
the best reviews.
He somehow gets all the sweet moderating jobs. I noticed at the Beckers events.
And so over the years, came on as an intern. There was 2 other employees at that time. And like I said, it was really just how are we connecting with the advertisers and almost learning, okay, do they want to reach the surgery center leaders? Who do they want to reach? And would they invest in us and how much? And so when I joined, Scott had a small print publication going on and then a web presence where he would mainly write. And so at that point, we really looked at it as we need to build like a true crown jewel of an editorial team instead of relying on freelancers or what Scott was writing. And so we started hiring writers, and I was really the main salesperson. And then it was really, okay, how are we being laser focused at building kind of 3 core departments of excellence and then almost outsourcing everything else as much as possible so we can focus where we want to be an A+. And so that was the editorial team, the sales team, and then really kind of customer service or operations. And so Katie Atwood, Molly Gamble, Laura Deirdre, there's all sorts of leaders that have been with us for 8-9 years that really run aspects of the company in these departments, and they are just crazily instrumental of how we've grown and how they've basically kind of nurtured all the other up-and-comers and middle managers and all these great leaders we have at the team.
And so then, as we mentioned, as you get into the events and we guys have these events going on, I mean, you have very, high-level people at these events. I mean, the people that show up are decision makers within their organizations who hold a lot of power. How do you guys kind of like navigate the whole event space? Because events are what they are. I mean, maybe someone's, their flight was delayed, or someone's, they're bannered in and show up on time via FedEx. Like, are you just what's your mindset going into these? And has that kind of changed over the years where you've been able to delegate all the minutia and be able to get out there and really talk with the clients? So, yeah. I mean, really, how do you focus in on these events? Because you have clients all over the place at these.
Yeah, for sure. So we've kind of created at our events these core lieutenants that are accountable, responsible, and really the
So it's basically like a military operation.
A nice one, I'd say. But these core lieutenants really look at it as, okay, I'm going to solve all the problems with exhibitor sponsors. And so I have the accountability, I have the tools, I know, and I really have the responsibility and the authority to make decisions within this realm. That's helped, I think, our small but mighty team. We're only about 59 full-time employees, really.
Which is still very impressive, just from, you said, 3 to almost 60 now. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, and so I think it's really breaking out kind of the microcosms of, okay, these few people are going to make sure it's an unbelievable whitest glove experience for the speakers. I know your team's been unbelievable of working with some of our speaker leaders on interviewing speakers at our events, which make them
producing content. Yep. You got to make it live on beyond the event.
Absolutely, and I think we look at like how do we have raving fans within attendees, within speakers, and then also are paying clients of exhibitors and sponsors. And so it's great to have that content. It's great to give a platform for the speakers to share their thoughts. And so I think it's really kind of giving that long leash to great employees, whether they've been with us for a year or whether they've been with us for 8 years. It's really laying out kind of, this is what we need you to do. This is your reason for being, and don't get overwhelmed that there's 3,999 other people. And really, like we call it channeling your small town. So how are we being super warm and inviting? So when we have all of our guests come, we try to channeling your small town to us means smiling, looking at people in the eye, helping them and solving their problems. So whether it's FedEx, whether it's, and we've put a lot of processes in place that we're not perfect by any means, but I think it's helped us be able to scale.
As an outsider, it looks like a well-oiled machine. So I think you guys are doing a good job in that regard. And then just to get into the events too, for anybody who's watching this has been to a Becker's event. I mean, you guys bring in big names. I'm just going to rattle some off real quick, and I'm sure I'm missing some. But Bill Clinton, George Bush, Howard Dean, Rudy Giuliani, and in the political world, in the entertainment world, you've brought in Katie Couric, Serena Williams, George Foreman. Peyton Manning was there last week. I mean, you guys, that's just a subsample of it, but how did you kind of get the idea to bring in, obviously, but how do you bring these people in and make them relevant to like healthcare people, so they're just not up there talking?
Yeah. So,
do you prep them or do you tell them?
For
like,
sure.
like, I mean, you got to make sure that these people, if somebody goes on there and says something, they need to protect themselves as well.
For
these things.
For sure. So we almost look at it previously what I said in terms of teaching and entertaining. So there's hundreds of teaching sessions that are actually hospital health system leaders that are so mission critical to our country's healthcare. And then the entertainment is really Sugar Ray Leonard, Peyton Manning. So we almost coach them like, people don't want to hear you talk about healthcare, Peyton. They want to hear about your motivation and your leadership and what you've done and your stories over the years. So we almost just make sure that they know, like, we're hiring you for fun. We're hiring you to be you. We're hiring you for you to talk about you, And it's almost scary when they're like, so how do I weave healthcare in here? It's like, no, don't do it. And so, I mean, we had Jay Leno once, and it was a stand-up, routine, or Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so it's really, how's it fun for the audience? And it's why it started is about 10 years ago, we ended up having some event competition, and it was the easiest way to invest in our events and make them stand out. And so it was like, we're gonna put on these amazing events, we're gonna have unbelievable speakers from the provider community, hospitals, health systems, surgery centers, and then we're also gonna have some fun. And we're gonna let these attendees meet, hopefully get a picture with Peyton Manning if they're a great client, which is like a fun experience in itself. So that's been the strategy. And we strategically place them throughout the day of like, they're usually the closing session. We keep people there all day. Ideally, they go to the reception and network with the exhibitors and sponsors.
Yeah, and it's cool too because they'll kind of like walk around. I remember, I think we had, Bobby Knight, Mike Ditka.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you brought in the who's who really of the entertainment political world. So very cool, Justin. Just kind of wrapping up. I know you're very philanthropic. What are you involved in these days as well? Kind of on. And your personal time that you want to shout out?
For sure. So Junior Achievement of Chicago is a big one. So I did Junior Achievement in 4th grade when I grew up in Iowa. And for those that aren't familiar with Junior Achievement, it usually professionals like you or I would go into a classroom, usually a lower income area, and teach business concepts. And so our whole company last year went into Pritzker Elementary. We took over a bunch of classrooms and taught for about a half a day. I will tell you, our job looks so easy compared to teaching. At the end of that 1 p.m., I was like, I'm exhausted. Right. So I'm the personal giving chair there this year, which is raising over $1 million for JIA in Chicagoland, which I'm super excited about, and it's a great organization. And then our company and myself has been super involved with the Lurie Children's Hospital over the years in various
dance marathon. It's always always an event. So
we just had 9 of us at the company run the marathon this weekend. So
really? After the conference?
Yeah, conference to marathon. So I'm still semi-hobbling, but it's all good.
That's quite a feat. Yeah, that is awesome, Jess. Well, Jess, any last parting words of advice just in terms of leadership or what's kind of worked for you over the years that the people watching this can kind of leave with some takeaways from? It's almost your personal session here.
Okay.
You're on the speaker stand.
Got it. Oh man, I'm no Peyton Manning. I think, what are you doing? I think any company is only as good as the people. Everyone says that, but how are you taking care of your people? How are you making sure they have great growth paths for themselves to be excited about? So I've been super kind of thoughtful with that approach. I think anyone can be. It's just making sure you spend the time and attention to what excites Thatcher, where's Thatcher going, where does he want to be, how do we make sure we're a great path for what he can kind of, I always say, how can Thatcher get as many tools in his tool chest of where he wants to be in 5 years from now with Becker? So that's one. And then 2, I think it's just, how do we have almost this like obsessive customer service culture. So super urgent to write back to emails. How are we just constantly almost being looked at as an extension of their team? We have about 800 clients, and we want those 800 clients to feel like we put on their hat. Like, I'll wear the Johnson & Johnson hat, you know? And so that kind of obsessive customer service and then focus on developing great leaders internally has been two of the things that excite me and I think have been great.
Awesome, Jess. Well, we appreciate your time here on the premiere episode, season 2. Jessica Cole, the CEO and president of Becker's Healthcare. Jess, thanks a lot for joining us. And we will be back next week with another episode of the TMG Intelligence Series. Thank you for watching.